The digital world has a heartbeat, and Jack Sullivan knew exactly how to stop it. He didn't use a keyboard. He used a $15 high-visibility vest and a clipboard. To the security guards at God Dynamics, he was just another weary contractor. To the NSA, he was a ghost they'd tried to bury a decade ago. But inside his earbud, the real magic was happening. "I'm through the firewall," Mouse whispered, her voice a jittery caffeinated blur. "But Jack, the server isn't empty. There's something else in here. Something that's already eating the world." In the high-stakes game of the Ghost Protocols, the greatest weapon isn't a line of code or a silenced pistol. It's the terrifying truth that in a world where everything is connected, nothing is safe. The lights are about to go out, and Jack's team are the only ones who know how to work in the dark. The neon sign for Sully Security Solutions flickered, casting a sickly blue light over the warehouse floor. Jack Sullivan sat at a mahogany desk that had seen better decades, watching Sarah on a grainy monitor. "I'm in," Sarah's voice crackled through his earpiece. She was currently standing in the lobby of God Dynamics, wearing a tailored suit and a fake HR badge. "Copy that," Jack said, leaning back. "Griff, you're on the clock." "Cameras are on a 10-second loop," Griff grunted from the van outside. "But Sarah, the floor pressure sensors in the vault hallway are active. You have to walk the baseboards. Like a ballerina, sweetheart." "I hate ballet," Sarah whispered. This was a red team op. They were hired by Ethelgard's board of directors to test their own security. It was clean. It was legal. It paid the rent. Sarah reached the server room, swiped a cloned keycard, and plugged a small, black USB drive into the main terminal. "Mouse, you're up," Jack said. Back at the warehouse, Mouse's fingers blurred across her mechanical keyboard. The sound was like a hailstorm on a tin roof. "Slurping the data now, Jack. 5%, 20, wait." Mouse froze. Her eyes widened behind her thick glasses. "What is it?" Jack asked, his instinct for trouble spiking. "There's a ghost in the partition," Mouse whispered. "I'm supposed to be downloading their employee payroll encrypted files. But there's a second stream. Jack, it's a bypass. Someone else is already in this server. And they aren't red teaming." "Pull her out," Jack snapped. "Sarah, abort. Griff, get the door open now." "I can't," Griff shouted. "The system just hardlocked. Every door in the building is sealing. They've gone into black site mode." On the monitor, Jack watched Sarah's face go pale. The heavy steel shutters of the lobby began to grind shut. "Jack," Sarah's voice was small. "I hear boots. Heavy boots. They aren't mall security. The team escapes by the skin of their teeth, but they don't leave empty-handed." Mouse accidentally mirrored the ghost's data. When they crack it open back at the warehouse, they don't find payroll. They find Project OVERSIGHT. It's an algorithm designed to exploit zero-day vulnerabilities in every major power grid in the Western Hemisphere. It doesn't just steal money. It can turn off the lights of a whole country with one enter key. And the person who was stealing it wasn't a hacker. It was a man Jack thought was dead. Elias Thorne, Jack's former mentor at the NSA. The warehouse felt smaller now. The air-conditioned hum of the server racks, usually a comforting white noise, sounded like a ticking clock. "We can't stay here," Jack said, his voice dropping into that low, gravelly register he used when things were about to go south. "If Thorne is behind this, he's already got the NSA's Tailored Access Operations Group pinging every cell tower in Travis County. Mouse, kill the external uplink. Griff, start the burn." Griff didn't ask questions. He grabbed a jug of industrial-grade thermite paste and began prepping the hard drives. Mouse, however, was staring at the screen, her face illuminated by a waterfall of emerald green code. "Jack, this isn't just code," she whispered. "It's beautiful. It's a recursive loop that shouldn't exist. It's using a logic gate based on nonlinear dynamics. If I try to run this on a standard silicon chip, it'll fry the processor. This was written for something else. Something faster." "Quantum?" Jack asked. "Beyond. It's built to exploit the transition. The bridge between the old world and whatever is coming next. We need a translator, Jack said, turning to a rusted locker in the corner. He pulled out a dusty, leather-bound Rolodex, a relic of a pre-digital age. The kind of guy who doesn't show up on a Google search. 2 hours later, they were rattling down a dirt road in a 1978 Ford Econoline van. No GPS, no Bluetooth, no modern ECUs that Thorne could hack from a drone at 30,000 feet. Griff had stripped the van to its mechanical soul. Their destination was a decommissioned Cold War missile silo 3 hours west of Austin, hidden beneath a crumbling ranch. The man living inside was Abner Polk, a pioneer of 1970s cryptography who had vanished in 1994 after claiming the government was building a digital panopticon. The heavy steel hatch of the silo ground open with a screech that set Jack's teeth on edge. Abner stood there, holding a shotgun and wearing a headset connected to an ancient ham radio. Sullivan, Abner spat, squinting through thick, yellowed spectacles. "You're late. About 30 years late." "We found something, Abner," Jack said, holding up a physical printout of the OVERSIGHT code. "Something that looks like your 74 paper on prime factoring, but with a twist I've never seen." Abner ushered them into the belly of the silo. It was a museum of dead tech, vacuum tubes, punch cards, and massive reel-to-reel tape machines. "Why the junk, Pops?" Mouse asked, looking around in awe. "Because you can't hack a vacuum tube from a Starbucks in Virginia." "Girly," Abner grunted. He took the printout and laid it under a magnifying lamp. As he read, the color drained from his weathered face. "This isn't just a bypass," Abner whispered. "This is a God Key. OVERSIGHT doesn't just open doors. It rewrites the locks after it enters. It's a self-evolving virus. If this hits the national power grid, it won't just turn the lights off. It'll command the transformers to vibrate at frequencies that cause them to physically explode. It'll melt the copper in the ground." Suddenly, the ham radio on the desk erupted in static. Then, a voice cut through, clear, calm, and terrifyingly familiar. "Jack, I know you're there, and I know Abner is telling you how scary the world is." Jack froze. He looked at the radio. There were no wires connecting it to anything but a long-range antenna. "You think you're off-grid, Jack? I own the satellites that map the heat signatures of the Texas desert. I saw the van's engine block glowing like a candle 3 miles out." "Thorne," Jack said to the empty room. "Jack, don't be a hero. Hand over the drive to the men arriving at the hatch in 60 seconds, and I'll let Mouse and Sarah live. Keep it, and Abner's little fortress becomes his tomb." "His bluffing," Sarah whispered, checking her sidearm. "He doesn't bluff," Jack said. He looked at the team. They were trapped 60 feet underground. Above them, the sound of a blacked-out Black Hawk helicopter began to vibrate the very earth. "Mouse, how fast can you copy that code onto an analog medium?" Jack asked. "Analog? Like tape?" "Like the reel-to-reels," Jack pointed. "If we can get the raw data onto magnetic tape, we can destroy the drive. They'll think we have it, but they won't find it on a search. They won't think to look at 1960s technology." "I need 5 minutes." Mouse shouted, diving for the patch cables. "We've got 45 seconds, Griff said, priming a flashbang. "Jack, if we survive the hatch, where do we go? There's nowhere to hide from a guy who sees through the sky." Jack looked at Abner, then at the team. "We don't hide. We go somewhere so public, so loud, and so bright that he can't touch us without starting a riot." The hatch above them groaned as a hydraulic cutter began to eat through the seal. The screech of the hydraulic cutter stopped. A heavy silence filled the silo, followed by the metallic thud of the hatch hitting the concrete floor above. "Time's up," Jack whispered. He looked at Mouse. She was sweating, her hands shaking as she pulled a small, silver-cased drive from the ancient reel-to-reel interface. She had done it. She'd stripped the OVERSIGHT core and buried it in a piece of hardware that looked like a 2005-era MP3 player. "Is the payload ready?" Jack asked. "If I don't ping my private server every 60 minutes with a specific encrypted handshake," Mouse said, her voice trembling but certain, The code gets uploaded to every major torrent site, news outlet, and Reddit board on the planet. The world will see exactly how the NSA plans to melt the grid. It'll be the end of the agency. Good, Jack said. He turned to Sarah. Give me the red folder. Sarah pulled a thick, red plastic envelope from her bag, a prop they used for corporate audits. Jack stuffed a blank circuit board inside. Griff, Abner, hands up, Jack commanded. Let's go meet the ghosts. They climbed the ladder into the blinding Texas sun. 4 men in slate-gray tactical gear stood in a semicircle, suppressed rifles leveled at their chests. In the center stood Elias Thorne. He looked exactly the same as 10 years ago. Salt and pepper hair, a bespoke suit that cost more than the van, and eyes that held the cold vacuum of deep space. Jack, Thorne said, smiling thinly. You always had a flair for the dramatic. The missile silo? A bit on the nose, don't you think? I wanted to see if you still remembered how to walk on dirt. Elias, Jack replied, holding up the red folder. You want Project Oversight? Here it is. But there's a catch. Thorne didn't move. There always is. Mouse, Jack gestured to the girl beside him. She's built a dead man's switch. If she doesn't check in with her ghost every hour, the world finds out you've built a digital nuclear bomb. You kill us, you kill the secret. And we both know the director isn't ready for a congressional hearing on why the NSA is prepping to blow up Ohio. Thorne's smile didn't falter, but his eyes shifted to Mouse. For the first time, he saw her as a threat, not a tag-along. Clever. But a dead man's switch only works if you can reach the dead part. Take them. The guards moved in. They didn't shoot. They slammed Jack and Griff to the ground, zip-tying their wrists. Thorne stepped forward and took the red folder. He opened it, saw the blank board, and sighed. Where is the real drive, Jack? In a very safe place, Jack grunted against the dirt. Take us to your black site. Let's negotiate. Thorne didn't take them to a prison. He took them to a sleek, glass-walled innovation center on the outskirts of San Antonio. It was a front for an NSA intercept station. Jack, Sarah, Griff, and Mouse were locked in a Faraday room, a glass box designed to block all radio, cellular, and Wi-Fi signals. We have 40 minutes until the first ping is due, Mouse whispered, glancing at the digital clock on the wall. Jack, if I don't get to a terminal, the virus goes live. It'll start with the East Coast. People will die. I know, Jack said, his face calm. You know. Griff hissed. Jack, we're in a Faraday cage. We can't send a signal out, and we sure as hell can't hack our way out of a glass box with no computers. Jack looked at Sarah. Did you get it? Sarah reached into her hairline and pulled out a microscopic piece of wire, a specialized shim she'd swiped from Griff's kit before they were captured. She also spat out a small, plastic-wrapped pill. She cracked it open to reveal a tiny, high-powered magnet. I have the shim and the magnet, Sarah said, but we're being watched. She pointed to the high-definition cameras in the corners of the room. Thorne was likely watching them from a theater-sized screen upstairs, waiting for them to crack. We aren't going to hack the computer, Jack said, looking at the vent in the ceiling. We're going to hack the building's environmental control system. Mouse, remember what you said about the OVERSIGHT code? That it uses nonlinear dynamics. Yeah, why? Because, Jack grinned, this building is smart. The lights, the air, the locks, they're all balanced on a delicate frequency to keep the innovation flowing. If we can't send a signal out, we'll make the building send one for us. Upstairs, Thorne watched the monitors. He saw Jack Sullivan sitting on the floor, appearing to meditate. What are they doing? Thorne asked his tech lead. Nothing, sir. They're just sitting there. They have 30 minutes before the dead man timer hits. They're waiting for us to blink. Suddenly, the lights in the entire facility flickered. A low, rhythmic thumping sound began to vibrate through the floorboards. What is that? Thorne demanded. It's the HVAC system, sir. The fans, they're oscillating. It's creating a resonant frequency in the ductwork. In the glass box, Mouse wasn't coding. She was tapping. She and Sarah were using the magnet and the shim to manually pulse the emergency fire suppression sensor inside the vent. By hitting the sensor at a specific rhythm, a rhythm Mouse had memorized from the OVERSIGHT code, they were tricking the building's AI into thinking a thermal runaway was happening in the server room. "Sir," the tech lead shouted, "the building is initiating an emergency data purge protocol. It thinks there's a fire. It's opening all the security baffles to vent the smoke." The glass doors of the Faraday room hissed open. "That's our cue," Jack said, standing up. "Mouse, get to the main terminal. You've got 12 minutes to stop your own virus, and 10 minutes to make sure Thorne's career ends before the lights come back on." The strobes pulsed like a heartbeat in the dark. The data purge protocol had turned the high-tech facility into a labyrinth of steam and shadows. "The bluff is over," Mouse shouted over the roar of the HVAC fans. "Jack, the dead man's switch. I couldn't actually build a handshake that complex in Abner's silo. The timer is real, but there's no stop button. It's a direct, hardwired broadcast from the basement's Titan server. If we don't smash that hardware in 9 minutes, the OVERSIGHT virus goes global." Jack's jaw tightened. "So we aren't hacking our way out. We're breaking our way in." The basement was a cathedral of cooling pipes and humming processors. Unlike the glass offices upstairs, this was the hot zone, the physical reality of the NSA's power. "Griff, Sarah, take the service stairs. Create a distraction at the backup generator," Jack ordered. "Mouse, you're with me. I need you to tell me which drive to pull. We can't just blow the room. If we hit the wrong rack, the surge might actually trigger the broadcast early." As Jack and Mouse reached the reinforced doors of the server vault, the lights stabilized. The emergency power had kicked in. Standing in front of the vault, flanked by 2 guards with drawn weapons, was Elias Thorne. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't even angry. He looked disappointed. "You were always better at the how than the why, Jack," Thorne said, leaning against the cold steel door. "OVERSIGHT isn't a weapon. It's a deterrent. It's the digital version of a nuclear silo. We keep the world in check because they know we can flip the switch." "The problem with switches, Elias," Jack said, stepping into the light, "is that eventually, someone gets curious enough to flip them. And you were always a curious man." "Kill them," Thorne said flatly. Before the guards could level their rifles, the basement erupted. Griff had bypassed the fire suppression system, not with a hack, but with a wrench. A massive burst of halon gas flooded the room, creating a whiteout of freezing, breathable but blinding fog. In the confusion, Sarah, moving with the grace of the ballerina Griff had teased her about, slid through the fog, disarming the first guard with a sharp strike to the throat. Jack tackled Thorne. It wasn't a movie fight. It was a desperate, ugly struggle on a concrete floor. Jack wasn't trying to win a boxing match. He was reaching for Thorne's biometric keycard. "Mouse, now!" Jack yelled, pinning Thorne's arm. Mouse dived into the server vault. The heat was immense. Rows of blinking blue lights stretched into the dark. "Jack, I see it. The Titan rack. But it's shielded in a Faraday housing. I can't use a software override." 3 minutes, Mouse." Jack's voice was strained. Thorne had managed to grab a heavy flashlight and was slamming it into Jack's ribs. Mouse looked at the rack. She didn't have tools. She didn't have a virus. She looked at her backpack and pulled out the ancient, high-powered magnet Sarah had used in the glass box, along with a heavy-duty portable power bank Griff had rigged for her. She remembered what Abner told her: "You can't hack a vacuum tube, and you can't argue with physics." She didn't try to log in. She jammed the magnet against the primary drive array and looped the power bank's copper wiring around it, creating a crude, overpowered electromagnet. "Jack, get clear." The hum in the room shifted from a low drone to a high-pitched whine. The magnetic field she created began to rip the data straight off the spinning platters of the Titan server. On the monitors above, the broadcast progress bar reached 98%, 99%, and then turned into a sea of static. The server screamed, a literal mechanical grind of metal on metal as the read heads crashed into the disks. Silence. The fog cleared. Jack stood up, coughing, holding Thorne's keycard and a small digital recorder he'd had tucked in his pocket since the beginning. "I didn't just record your kill them order, Elias," Jack said, wiping blood from his lip. "Mouse mirrored your private logs while we were meditating in the glass box. The world isn't going to see the OVERSIGHT virus. They're going to see the bank accounts you used to fund it." Thorne looked at the ruined server, then at the team of misfits, a jaded ex-spy, a van-dwelling genius, a cynical locksmith, and an actress. "You think you won?" Thorne hissed. "There are 10 more projects just like this one." "Maybe," Jack said, signaling the team to move toward the exit as the distant sound of sirens, not NSA, but local police and news helicopters, began to circle the building. "But for tonight, the lights are staying on." The final shot is of the Econoline van driving into the Texas sunset. Inside, the team is exhausted, covered in dust and grease. "So," Griff said, lighting a cigar, "we're broke, we're wanted by the federal government, and we just blew up $1 billion of taxpayer hardware. What's for dinner?" Mouse looked at a small, flickering screen in her lap. She tapped a key. "I might have diverted a small administrative fee from Thorne's offshore account before I fried the server. Nothing crazy. Just enough for a very, very good steak." Jack smiled, leaning his head back against the seat. "Make it 4 steaks. And some of that expensive ginger ale Abner likes." If you're still watching, you're one of us, and you know why. Like the video, comment, share it, and subscribe for what comes next. This is B-Hack World.